our next is Resolution Minerals, which trades on the ASX under the symbol RML and on the OTC markets under the symbol RLMLF, and soon to be RSMIY with your ADR. So please welcome CEO Craig Lindsay. Thanks, Craig.
Stephen, thank you very much, everyone. It's really great to be back in New York. I haven't been here for a while. I'm really excited to be here to share this story with you. Very impressed with how your new mayor has gotten out there with all of the shovelers, and my walk from the hotel, my shoes were clean and dry when I arrived. So must admit, I'm impressed with that. I want to talk to you today about Resolution Minerals. It's a company listed on the ASX in Australia and also on the OTC under the symbol RLMLF. What I want to talk to you today is about critical metals, in particular antimony and tungsten, and I also am going to talk to you about gold. We own 100% interest in a project called Horse Heaven. It's a 15,000 acre project located in the state of Idaho. It is on Forest Service land. The takeaway from this slide is a couple of things. Number one, we've got two targets I want to talk to you about, that being Golden Gate, which is both gold and tungsten, and then we have a target called Antimony Ridge, which is antimony. There's also gold and silver with that project. Secondly, Horse Heaven is located right next to the Stibnite Gold Project. That's recently permitted mine operated by Perpetua Resources. Perpetua Resources is about a $4.3 billion market cap company. We're trading on the ASX at about $80 million in market cap. And I think geologically, and I'm going to walk you through this, I think we have the potential to be a similar size as what they have over at Stibnite. And then the final thing I just want to say about this slide is we are in the state of Idaho. Very mining friendly state. There's a lot of activity going on in the state, everything from gold to silver, molybdenum. We've got both open pit mines, underground mines. The state is very, very supportive of mining activities. So geographically, we're in the right state, in my opinion. And then being right next door to a new mine that's going into production, being the Stibnite project, we're really going to benefit from all of the infrastructure that's going on at the Stibnite mine. Couple of things in terms of the history of our project. It actually produced historically. And what you're looking at here is that this thing produced antimony in the First World War, the Second World War, right through to the Korean War, via open 3,000 feet of open trenches or open pits that are on the property. Played a significant role, this mining district, in particularly in the Second World War from a military perspective. In the 50s, at the Golden Gate area, there was a mine called the Golden Gate Tungsten mine that we own that produced tungsten intermittently from the 1950s right up to the 1980s. And much of that material was processed on something called the Johnson Creek Mill, which we recently acquired. In terms of first I want to talk to you about Golden Gate, and this is the gold tungsten story, and then we'll get into Antimony Ridge. First thing you'll see here in terms of the overview, we've got some spectacular grades out there. The first holes that we pulled out in a drill program last fall, 253 meters of 1.5 grams per ton. That mineralization started from surface and ended an open-ended mineralization. So that speaks to the size potential. Golden Gate, that target is about 3 kilometers long. We've been drilling in an area along that 3 kilometer strike length of about 1.5 kilometers. So a big target there. It's an intrusion-related gold system. It's a direct analog to what we have over at the Stibnite mine next door. In terms of, everyone always says about the what is your potential out there? You've got 3,000 feet of, or 3,000 kilometers or meters of target. We've hit on 100% of the holes that we've drilled in 2025. So we haven't had a miss. Then there's gold from surface all the way to the bottom of the hole. This thing is extensive, it's large. I think it's got the potential to be clearly a well over a multi-million ounce deposit. In terms of near-term catalysts, we've got a big program planned out there in 2026. Starting in May, we're going to put down 30,000 feet of drilling. That's triple the drilling I did in the fall. We're going to be focused on both the what we call Golden Gate North and Golden Gate South, and we're going to end up this year with producing a maiden resource estimate for the Golden Gate deposit. I talked about this thing being a direct analog to the stibnite mine next door. And what we're showing here is our project on the left, Horse Heaven. On the right-hand side, the east side of the project is Perpetua's stibnite project. What sits between these two projects is an intrusion that comes up to the surface that's been driving all of the mineralization, both at the stibnite project and at our project. So whenever you're interested or you're thinking about resolution and you're thinking about Horse Heaven, think about the stibnite mine, because I really think it's a direct analog. In terms of the size potential, I mentioned that this thing has a 3-kilometer strike length. And we've been drilling in this area that's basically 1.5 kilometers long. It's up in the north, we call it the north target, and then the south target. We've had 2 discoveries out there this year, the north and the south. And why I get excited about the size potential here, this thing sits on these faults that run north-south. And if I can demonstrate that there is continuity between the north target and the south target, that's where things get very, very exciting. And frankly, we haven't even started drilling in the areas that we think have the highest potential. For instance, this year, you'll see Golden Gate South, the bottom of your screen. Just to the west of that, we're going to be drilling on an existing drill road. And that area features a very, very big gold in soil anomaly, as well as a tungsten anomaly. So we're pretty excited about the potential to grow this thing. I talked about drill success, and the exploration game is high risk. I've hit a lot of dry holes in my time. I've never actually gone out and drilled 10 core holes that have had mineralization in every single hole, many of them beginning at surface and many of them ending in mineralization. And when you look at some of those numbers, and obviously I talk about the 253 meters at 1.5 grams per ton surface to the bottom of the hole, that is a spectacular hole. That moved our stock. That got people very, very interested. And we just continued to churn out these numbers. And what you're looking at is these are bulk tonnage numbers. You've got open pittable ore at the surface. And then underneath, and this is where it's never been drilled before, is down at depth. Historically, there's been 2 drill programs prior to what we drilled out there in 86, 87, and 1994. They only drilled, the deepest holes they drilled were 500 feet. They were drilled on angle, so the real depth was only about 350 feet. They never went any deeper than that. My deepest hole last year was 1,200 feet. And the gold just keeps on going as you go down. So that gets me pretty excited. Tungsten, it's a critical metal. On this Golden Gate trend, where you see the Golden Gate North story, there was a historic tungsten mine. It produced from the 50s, intermittently, I have to admit, up to 1980. It produced enough ore that they built a mill at the bottom of the hill called the Johnson Creek Mill. We've acquired that mill site. It's 25 acres of private land that's at the bottom of and adjacent to our project. So we've got private land that was a past processor of tungsten. So we're excited about that. What you see here, we've got ore stockpiles that we've acquired out there, about 2,000 tons. The grade that was mined out there This is reported grades, and it's sitting right behind that mill, 1.5% to 2% tungsten. You know anything about tungsten? Those grades are very, very good compared to global tungsten mines. So we think in terms of tungsten potential, yes, I'm animated, I'm waving my arms about the gold, but tungsten is an exciting part of this story. And we'll talk about this in a minute, but from a critical metals perspective, it's high on the list of things that the US administration wants to start producing domestically. Kind of gone over this in terms of our action plan. At the top of this thing, what we're talking about is 30,000 feet of drilling at Golden Gate that's going to end the year with a maiden resource estimate. I can't throw out any numbers here, but with the drilling that we've done to date, I can tell you we are sitting on a lot of gold, and with the drilling that we're going to do this year, I think the expansion potential is strong, and we should be coming out with a pretty strong resource. Arm waving here down on the future, but then we want to move into additional drilling, moving into a PFS, and obviously a mining decision. But I think it's really the immediate term action plan, all the drilling that we've got, all of the results that are going to be coming out, and a resource estimate that should excite people. Now let's talk about antimony for a minute. I've been spending a lot of time in DC these days talking to the Department of War about this project, trying to get some traction. We're looking for grant money to help fund putting this project, doing both development financing and putting it into production. Very exciting, because what you have here is 3,000 feet, and that's what you're looking at on your screen over here, is 3,000 feet of open trenches that produced in the First World War, Second World War, and Korean War. And what's exciting, and it's almost hard to believe, but the sampling that we've done out there in the past 6 months has averaged average grade of 40% stibnite, high of just under 50%. And yeah, we've got some 10%, 20, 30% stuff, but it's averaging in float samples and samples of the veins that are within the trenches of 30%. And or 40%. That's what should get people really excited. The plan here in terms of a development potential is going and permitting a bulk sample on this project. It'll be a low environmental footprint, because we'll be extracting this ore from within existing disturbed areas. So we're hoping that'll be a simplified permitting process. And when you look at those kind of grades, we're only talking about moving 500 tons of material in a bulk sample, but that can produce probably kind of 250, 300 tons of end product when you got a 40% grade. So very, very exciting. I don't want to get in too much into the tungsten or antimony itself, but you've got here in the United States about a 15,000 ton supply deficit. Even assuming in 2028 you get the stibnite mine into production, producing about 8,500 tons per year. So there is a big deficit. There's lots of room for us to help provide and address some of the supply deficit that's out there. I think you guys probably know China they process about 80% of the world's antimony. They mine about 60% of the world's antimony. They've shut off supplies to the United States. So the US administration has been very, very focused on developing domestic supplies of critical metals, period. But antimony is very, very high on their list. It's a big defense metal. It's critical. That's what makes it a critical metal from a US perspective. The stories that are out there in terms of US domestic production potential, you've got United States Antimony Corp. They've got a deal with the Department of Defense, $245 million to supply antimony for national stockpiles. You've got the Perpetua story, and then you've got Nova Minerals, which is looking, they've got a little over $40 million from the federal government to help develop domestic supplies. The takeaway from this slide, companies are great, projects are great, people are great. The potential to actually deliver supplies is a little bit further out into the future. That's where Resolution Minerals comes into play. This is these 3,000 feet of historic trenches. We've gone in and looked at these high-grade veins that cut across the open trenches. I think, we've done some calculations. It's not 43-101 compliant. It's not JORC compliant, but we have to do some internal work just noodling around on what do we think we can scrape off of the surface. And these high-grade near-surface veins can supply a significant amount of mineralization to meet U.S. military supplies and national stockpile requirements. This is just some math that we've done. And at the end of the day, the takeaway here is that the U.S. consumes about 24,000 tons of antimony a year. The Department of War, little over 7,000 tons. We talked about, you look at that, you've got Perpetua at 8,500 tons. That supply deficit is what makes this an interesting story. And our pitch is, look, these other projects are going to come online 2028, 2029 later. Get us permitted, allow us to go in and start scraping out some of this high-grade material. It's running 40%. That's going to make a material dent in the supply deficit that you guys have domestically. And I think that's a very important part of the story. And it can happen right now rather than in 3 years, 4 years. So pretty exciting there. We're still developing all of the whole story around the processing side of things. We've got material, high-grade and low-grade material with labs in Canada and with labs in Australia, developing process flow sheets. We hope to, in the next couple of months, come out with some end products through this testing that we're doing. And it's going to give us a much better idea, so I can share with you in the next couple of months how we really propose to move this forward from a processing point of view. My background is corporate finance and investment banking. I've spent a lot of time in Idaho. I'm very familiar with the permitting regime. I'm familiar with all of the service providers, familiar with all of the challenges that are out there, as well as the opportunities. I got involved with this company because I was actually one of the selling groups that sold the asset to them last year, and they asked me to stay on and move the project forward. But we got a good team. Brett Lynch, Steve Prominence are advisors to our company. They've had a lot of experience in critical metals, and they're really putting our feet to the fire in terms of helping us aggressively move this project forward. I can tell you, you're not making any money off of me. The people that you should be looking at here is the exploration team. And we've put together just a fantastic team of guys that have a long history with this project. Austin Zinsser, for instance, one of our geologists, he's spent the last 12 years working at the Stibnite mine as the #2 geologist out there. So he really understands the rocks. Bill Breen was one of the guys that originally staked this project. We've recently brought on board a guy named Dave Ombre. Dave was the mine geologist at the old Golden Gate tungsten mine. So a lot of gray hair on our team. I have no hair, but the rest of the guys have gray hair. We also have permitting expertise in Eric Klepfer, and then a great operational guy in the form of Alan Roberts, who knows how to work in difficult conditions. We are in Idaho, we're in the mountains, we're at elevation. You got to work hard to make things a success. And this is a fantastic team. Last thing, we do trade. Yeah, it's an Australian company with 2 billion shares out, trading at 4 cents, but we are upgrading our listing. We trade very well on the ASX, but we are upgrading our listing to ultimately to NASDAQ. We've done the initial filings. We really think there's a strong and compelling reason for U.S. investors to start getting involved in this story because it's a U.S. domiciled project, and B, it's critical metals, and that is something that the United States needs to really, really get behind. We have no debt. And we're fully funded right now for our exploration program in 2026. So that's the story. I know I might have taken up too much time, but any questions here for me?
No, we're good, Craig. Appreciate it. So I have a microphone here because we're broadcasting this online. If anybody has any questions, just raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone over and you can ask your question. And if not, we can go to the online audience as well. Anybody here? Maybe that'll start some questions. Go ahead, John.
Craig, the first question is, the heart of the mountain is said to be 3,500 to 5,000 feet deep. Does Resolution have any plans to drill that deep? And if so, when?
Great question. So that's true. Your top of your hill is actually at about 5,000 feet. That I'm talking about Golden Gate. And because we're on the side of the hill, we won't have to put down 3,000-foot holes. We're drilling 1,200 to 1,500-foot holes, and we'll be drilling from roads along the side of the hill. So if you go halfway down the hill and drill it underneath, that's how you get down deep under this, drilling 1,500-foot holes.
Thank you. Another question is, what are the milestones over the next 12 to 24 months that you think will lead to a re-rating of the stock?
Well, I think the first thing is this conference. That's the first re-rating we're going to get, John. But I think it's 30,000 feet of drilling at Golden Gate, number one. Number two, a resource estimate at the end of the year. Number three, we are permitting for this bulk sample program at Antimony Ridge. We get that. That's an absolute game changer when we get some clarity on how the permitting is going to go. We've also filed, I didn't mention this, for FAST 41 coverage with the National Permitting Council. We get some of that coverage. That's going to get some more eyeballs on the stock. The U.S. listing and NASDAQ hopefully will give us a bump. So there's actually quite a bit of activity here that I think is going to generate lots of news flow in this company over the next 12 to 24 months.
Okay. And we had an investor ask about the timeline for the purchase of the mill.
So good question. And we did announce the purchase of the mill. There's two properties. It's 25 acres in total. One's 15, one's 10. We're just completing our due diligence on that. And you're buying a project that's had past processing on it. So there's lots of environmental reviews we've had to do, et cetera. But you're going to see that transaction close, certainly in the next quarter.
Were there any more questions from the audience here? Okay, we've got one more from the online audience, correct?
Sure.
It says Resolution has consolidated 14,500 acres of the most productive ground in the district. Is your goal to become a new major mining company, or are you preparing a district scale package for a tier 1 buyout?
Great question, and I give the same answer every time. We have to put our blinders on and approach this project as if we were going to put this into production. You have to take all of the steps the boring stuff, all of the environmental stuff. You got to do all of your exploration. You got to do all of your technical studies. And every single thing we do is with a view to putting both Golden Gate and Antimony Ridge into production. If I get that bulk sample permit frankly, we will be in production in the next 12 months. But in terms of the big picture, when you've got a project that's potentially as large as I've laid out today, there will be people clearly, in my opinion, knocking at the door.
And that wraps up for the session. Thank you so much, Craig Lindsay, CEO of Resolution Minerals. We're going to take another break, and we'll be back here at 3 p.m. for our last two companies. Look forward to having you. Thank you.